The air crackled with anticipation as Jeremiah Hunt and his crew, Kelvin and Samuel, stood on the windswept shores of the remote Caribbean island. Above them, storm clouds gathered ominously, casting a shadow over the landscape as the first tendrils of wind whipped through their hair. But despite the impending storm, excitement buzzed in the air as they prepared for their treasure exploration mission. Jeremiah, with his rugged features and steely gaze, exuded an air of confidence as he checked and double-checked their equipment. His fingers traced the edges of his trusty compass, a relic from countless adventures past, while his mind raced with visions of untold riches waiting to be discovered. Kelvin, the youngest of the trio, fidgeted nervously, his eyes darting between the darkening sky and the shimmering sea. His hands trembled as he adjusted the straps of his backpack, his excitement tinged with a hint of apprehension. Samuel, the oldest and most experienced of the group, stood apart from the others, his weathered face etched with lines of determination. With a firm nod, he signaled his readiness, his voice lost in the howling wind, as he gestured toward the horizon. Together, they faced the unknown, united by a shared thirst for adventure and the promise of treasure waiting to be unearthed. As dark clouds gathered ominously on the horizon and the first rumblings of thunder echoed through the air, Jeremiah Hunt and his crew, Kelvin and Samuel, stood transfixed on the shore of the remote Caribbean island. Their eyes were drawn to a ghostly ship that materialized out of the mist. Its spectral form was illuminated by flashes of lightning that streaked across the darkened sky. Despite the looming threat of the incoming storm, the allure of the mysterious vessel proved irresistible, igniting a spark of excitement in their hearts. Jeremiah felt a surge of adrenaline course through his veins as he gazed upon the ghost ship, his mind racing with thoughts of untold riches and hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. Both Kelvin and Samuel, his loyal companions, shared in his enthusiasm, their eyes alight with the prospect of adventure and fortune. With the storm drawing closer by the minute, they knew that time was of the essence if they were to seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Without hesitation, Jeremiah sprang into action, rallying his crew to prepare a small rowboat for the perilous journey to the ghost ship. As the winds whipped through the palm trees and the waves crashed against the shore, they launched their boat into the churning waters, their hearts pounding with anticipation and excitement. With each stroke of the oars, they drew closer to the ghost ship, the eerie glow of its spectral form casting an otherworldly aura over the darkened sea. As night fell and the storm drew closer, casting a veil of darkness over the island, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. With each passing moment, the tension mounted, the air thick with the promise of adventure and the unknown. As they set out into the mysterious unknown, little did they know that their journey would lead them into the heart of darkness itself, where the line between this world and the next would blur, and the true horrors of the undead ship would be revealed. As they neared the ship, the full extent of its ghostly presence became apparent, its time-worn hull adorned with tattered sails and rotting wood. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding as they climbed aboard, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors like whispers of the past. With torches in hand, they ventured deeper into the bowels of the ship, their senses on high alert for any sign of hidden treasure or lurking danger. Jeremiah and his crew stepped onto the weathered planks of the tattered ship, and a palpable sense of unease settled over them like a heavy fog. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay, and a chill wind whispered through the rigging, carrying with it the faint echoes of long-forgotten whispers. Despite the storm brewing on the horizon and the ominous aura that surrounded them, the allure of the hidden treasure within the ship's hold beckoned to them like a siren's call. The interior of the ship was cloaked in darkness, broken only by the feeble flicker of lantern light and the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the cramped corridors in brief, stark relief. Shadows danced and swayed with every gust of wind, their movements casting eerie shapes upon the walls and floor. Jeremiah's heart pounded in his chest as he led the way, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger lurking in the shadows. As they ventured deeper into the belly of the ship, the air grew thick with anticipation and trepidation. Each creak of the wooden floorboards beneath their feet seemed to echo through the silent corridors, magnified by the oppressive stillness of the night. The walls seemed to close in around them, their ancient timbers groaning with the weight of centuries of history and secrets untold. Yet despite the growing sense of foreboding that gripped them, Jeremiah and his crew pressed on, driven by a mixture of curiosity and greed that clouded their judgment and fueled their determination to uncover the treasure that lay hidden within the ship's dark heart. Suddenly, a bone-chilling cold washes over the explorers, sending shivers down their spines as a sense of foreboding grips their hearts. The temperature drops sharply, and their breath hangs in the air like mist as they exchange nervous glances. Something is not right. They can feel it in their bones, a primal instinct warning them of the danger that lurks in the shadows. Traveling further still down the crumbling cabins, a sense of unease began to settle over them like a shroud, the oppressive atmosphere weighing heavy on their shoulders. Strange shadows flickered in the corners of their vision, and ghostly whispers seemed to echo through the empty halls, sending shivers down their spines. Yet, despite the mounting sense of dread, Jeremiah and his crew pressed on, driven by the promise of untold riches and the thrill of the unknown. As Jeremiah and his crew rummage through the chambers of the ghostly ship, a sense of unease hangs heavy in the air. The flickering torchlight casts eerie shadows on the ancient walls, illuminating the faded paintings of long-dead pirates and the rusted chains that dangle ominously from the ceiling. With each step, the creaking of the wooden floorboards seems to echo through the ship like the anguished moans of the damned, a chilling reminder of the vessel's haunted past. As Jeremiah, Kelvin, and Samuel ventured deeper into the bowels of the ghost ship, their torches casting flickering shadows against the walls, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. Their eyes widened in awe as they beheld the sight before them, piles of gold coins, gleaming jewels, and priceless artifacts strewn haphazardly across the room. The air was heavy with the scent of ancient treasure, and the crew could scarcely believe their luck at stumbling upon such a remarkable discovery. Suddenly, a bone-chilling cold washes over the explorers, sending shivers down their spines as a sense of foreboding grips their hearts. The temperature drops sharply, and their breath hangs in the air like mist as they exchange nervous glances. Something is not right. They can feel it in their bones, a primal instinct warning them of the danger that lurks in the shadows. But the allure of the wealth and fortune that sit before them could not be ignored. With eager hands, they set to work collecting the treasure, their hearts pounding with excitement at the prospect of untold riches. Kelvin scooped handfuls of gold coins into a sack, while Samuel carefully examined the sparkling jewels, his eyes alight with wonder. Jeremiah, the fearless leader of the expedition, surveyed the chamber with a keen eye, his mind racing with thoughts of the fortune they stood to gain. But as they delved even deeper into the treasure trove, their jubilation turned to horror as they came upon a row of dried-out corpses, their skeletal forms draped in tattered clothing, their empty eye sockets staring out at them with an eerie emptiness. The crew recoiled in disgust and disbelief, their stomachs churning at the sight of the desiccated bodies. It was clear that these pirates had met a grisly fate, their lives claimed by the curse that had befallen the ghost ship. Despite the ominous presence of the dead pirates, Jeremiah and his crew pressed on, their greed overriding their instincts of self-preservation. With trembling hands, they began to pry the treasure from the grasp of the corpses, their minds consumed by thoughts of wealth and fortune. But as Samuel reached out to remove a jeweled scepter from the hand of one of the dead pirates, a chill ran down his spine as he felt a strange energy coursing through his veins. Suddenly, with a sickening groan, the dead pirates began to stir, their desiccated bodies jerking to life with an unnatural force. Horror washed over Jeremiah and his crew as they realized the true nature of the curse that had befallen the ghost ship. Then, without warning, the silence is shattered by a low, guttural groan that reverberates through the ship like a thunderclap. Jeremiah and his crew freeze in terror as they turn to face the source of the sound, their eyes widening in horror as ghostly figures emerge from the darkness. Clad in tattered rags and with vacant stares, the undead crew of the ship materializes before them, their ethereal forms glowing faintly in the dim light. With hollow eyes fixed on the intruders, they lurch forward with an otherworldly hunger, their outstretched hands reaching for the treasure hunters with grasping fingers that seem to drip with malevolence. Panic grips Jeremiah and his crew as they realize the dire situation they now face. With nowhere to run, and the undead closing in, they ready their weapons and brace themselves for the fight of their lives. The air crackles with tension as the two sides collide in a chaotic frenzy of steel and shadows, the clang of metal, and the anguished cries of the undead echoing through the haunted halls of the undead ship. In this harrowing battle between the living and the dead, Jeremiah and his crew must summon every ounce of courage and strength they possess if they hope to survive the night and escape the cursed vessel with their lives. With evil intent gleaming in their hollow eyes, the undead pirates advanced on the intruders, their skeletal hands reaching out with a hunger for flesh. Trapped in the chamber with nowhere to run, Jeremiah, Kelvin, and Samuel knew that they were facing a battle for their lives, against an enemy that could not be killed. As the undead pirates closed in on Jeremiah and his crew, panic gripped the trio, their hearts pounding with fear and desperation. With no time to spare, Jeremiah sprang into action, grabbing a nearby pouch filled with gold and precious jewels, along with whatever else he could stuff into his pockets. He knew that their only chance of survival lay in escaping the cursed chamber and fleeing the ghost ship before it was too late. With a swift motion, Jeremiah turned to flee, his feet pounding against the cold stone floor as he raced toward the exit. Behind him, Kelvin and Samuel fought desperately to fend off the advancing horde of undead, their torches flickering in the darkness as they swung wildly at their skeletal assailants. But their efforts were in vain, as the relentless undead closed in with every passing moment, their hunger for flesh driving them onwards. Amidst the chaos and terror that engulfed the ghostly ship, Jeremiah Hunt's heart pounded in his chest, like a drumbeat of impending doom. He watched in horror as his crew members, once his trusted companions, fell one by one to the relentless onslaught of the undead. Their screams echoed through the dark corridors, a symphony of agony and despair that pierced the silence of the haunted vessel. With each passing moment, Jeremiah's resolve wavered, torn between his instinct to fight and his desperate need to survive. But as he watched Samuel and Kelvin succumb to the ravenous jaws of the undead, their faces twisted in agony, he knew that he had to make a choice, to abandon his friends and flee, or to stay and face almost certain death. With a heavy heart and a sense of bitter resignation, Jeremiah made the gut-wrenching decision to leave his companions behind. With a heavy heart, Jeremiah glanced back over his shoulder, his eyes filled with guilt and remorse as he watched his crew members fall victim to the ravenous undead. Kelvin's desperate cries echoed through the chamber, mingling with the sound of clashing swords and the guttural moans of the undead. Samuel's valiant efforts were soon overwhelmed, his torch extinguished as he was dragged down into the darkness by a horde of skeletal hands. With a final burst of adrenaline, Jeremiah tore himself away from the scene, his mind consumed by thoughts of survival and self-preservation. Clenching his jaw against the overwhelming guilt and sorrow that threatened to consume him, he turned and fled, his footsteps echoing through the dimly lit corridors as he raced toward the safety of the ship's deck. He knew that he could not save his comrades, but he could not let their deaths be in vain. With a heavy heart and a pooch heavy with ill-gotten gains, he fled the cursed chamber, leaving behind his fallen friends to meet their grisly fate at the hands of the undead. As he raced towards the exit, the echoes of their screams haunted his every step, a chilling reminder of the price of greed, ambition, and the horrors that lurked within the heart of the ghost ship. But even as he ran, the spectre of betrayal loomed large in his mind, a haunting reminder of the cost of his greed and ambition. With each step, he felt the weight of his actions bearing down on him, the knowledge that he had abandoned his friends to their fate, gnawing at his conscience like a festering wound. As he burst onto the deck, the storm raging around him, Jeremiah's heart hammered in his chest with a mixture of fear and relief. A final glance back at the ship, now shrouded in darkness and death, was quickly interrupted by the scuttling of the undead pirates coming towards him. Any thoughts of going back to rescue his friends were now gone. With hastened steps towards the bow of the ship, he leaped into the churning waters below. As Jeremiah sunk into the tumultuous waters, the icy grip of the ocean closed in around him, dragging him down into the depths with a merciless force. The storm raged overhead, the wind howling like a banshee, and the waves crashing against him with relentless fury. Jeremiah struggled to stay afloat amidst the roiling waves. Jeremiah knew that his ordeal was far from over. But with the memory of his fallen comrades weighing heavily on his mind, he vowed to never forget the price of his betrayal and the darkness that lurked within the depths of his soul. Jeremiah fought for every breath, his lungs burning with the effort as he struggled against the churning currents that threatened to consume him. With every ounce of strength he possessed, he kicked and thrashed against the water, desperate to reach the surface and escape the clutches of the undead that pursued him relentlessly. But as darkness closed in around him and his strength waned, Jeremiah felt himself succumbing to the merciless embrace of the ocean. His limbs grew heavy, his vision blurred, and the roar of the storm faded into a distant echo. With a final gasp for air, he surrendered to the relentless pull of the current, his consciousness slipping away as he was swept into the abyss. The morning sun cast a warm golden glow over the tranquil shores of the remote Caribbean island, its gentle rays washing over Jeremiah. As Jeremiah's consciousness slowly returned to him, he found himself lying on the damp sand of the desolate beach, the pounding waves of the ocean crashing against the shore in a relentless rhythm. Blinking away the remnants of sleep, he rose to his feet, his body aching from the ordeal he had endured. His mind foggy with the lingering haze of the night's horrors. Memories of the ghost ship and the undead crew flooded back with a jolt, sending a shiver down his spine as he struggled to push them aside. With a sense of urgency coursing through him, he began to visually scour the beach for any sign of the treasure he had collected from the ghost ship. Pushing himself up on trembling arms, Jeremiah surveyed his surroundings, his gaze sweeping across the pristine expanse of sand and the calm waters of the Caribbean Sea. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sense of eerie calm that belied the chaos of the previous night. With each passing moment, the events of the night before seemed like a distant nightmare, a surreal blur of fear and desperation that threatened to consume him once more. As he rose unsteadily to his feet, Jeremiah's eyes fell upon the spot where the ghost ship had once stood. Its spectral form now vanished without a trace. The emptiness of the shoreline seemed to mock him, a silent reminder of the terror he had faced and the lives lost in pursuit of treasure. With a heavy heart, he turned away from the sea, his thoughts consumed by the weight of guilt and regret. The sound of distant waves crashing against the shore brought Jeremiah back to the present, grounding him in the reality of his surroundings. With a weary sigh, he trudged along the beach, his footsteps leaving a trail of imprints in the sand. As he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, the shadows of the forest looming ominously on the edge of his vision. But whether the specters of the past or the lingering presence of the undead, Jeremiah knew that he could never truly escape the horrors of the night that had changed him forever. After what felt like an eternity of searching, Jeremiah's eyes fell upon a familiar sight, the worn leather satchel that contained the precious cargo he had risked his life for. With trembling hands, he scooped up the satchel and clutched it tightly to his chest, a sense of triumph swelling within him as he turned to make his way back home. Exhausted and weary, he stumbled through the darkness, the weight of the satchel dragging him down with each step. Upon reaching the safety of his humble abode, Jeremiah collapsed onto his bed, his body racked with exhaustion, as sleep claimed him once more. In his dreams, visions of untold riches danced before his eyes, filling him with a sense of euphoria and anticipation for the fortune he was about to make. But as the night wore on and the darkness deepened, Jeremiah's dreams turned to nightmares. With the first light of dawn filtering through the window, Jeremiah awoke with a start, his heart pounding with excitement at the prospect of counting his newfound riches. Hastily retrieving the satchel from where he had left it, he eagerly emptied its contents onto the table before him, his eyes widening with delight at the sight of glittering gold and precious jewels. But as he sifted through the treasure, his fingers brushed against something unexpected, a piece of parchment, its surface yellowed with age and bearing a cryptic message scrawled in faded ink. Intrigued, Jeremiah unfolded the note and began to read, his brow furrowing in confusion, as the warning of the cursed ship and the fate that awaited those who dared to take its treasure unfolded before him. At first he laughed off the dire warnings as nothing more than the ramblings of a madman, dismissing the note as a mere superstition. But as the sound of rumbling footsteps grew louder and closer, Jeremiah's laughter turned to fear, his heart pounding with dread at the realization that the curse of the ghost ship was all too real. Suddenly, there came a knock at the door, followed by a louder, more insistent pounding that reverberated through the walls of the house. Jeremiah's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The undead pirates had come for him, their hollow eyes fixed on him with a hunger that chilled him to the bone. With a sense of desperation gripping his heart, Jeremiah pleaded with the approaching horde, offering them the treasure in a desperate bid for mercy. But his pleas fell on deaf ears, and as the undead pirates closed in around him, Jeremiah knew that his fate was sealed. With a futile cry for help, he braced himself for the inevitable, as the army of undead pirates reached out to claim him, their grasp closing around him like the icy grip of death itself. As the darkness consumed him once more, Jeremiah knew that he had become yet another victim of the cursed ghost ship, destined to serve the undead crew for eternity.